I finally mustered the courage to record by myself and listen to myself talk, which is my personal nightmare. Yeah, I don't know how many of you have ever listened to yourself talk or heard your own voice back on a recording, but it is unsettling at first, for sure. If you look at the first, handful of podcasts that I did, even with guests, I was definitely not super comfortable. I envy the hell out of Bill Burr and his ability to run a podcast by himself about just random shit that people send into him. He produces an amazing show. I hope eventually through practice and, improving every one of these that I do, that I'll be able to get anywhere near the quality of that show. Anyway, today is April 7th, 2020, and we are probably, I would say, it feels like maybe the second inning, the bottom of the second, maybe top of the third inning here on this COVID-19 pandemic in the United States. I am in Northwest Arkansas, headquarters of Walmart, J.B. Hunt, Tyson Chicken, lots of big corporations out here. So we'll see. Right now, this governor of ours, Mr. Hutchinson, is claiming that we don't need to shelter in place because he knows the better way to handle this kind of thing. So we'll see what happens. Right now, they're at least claiming things are going really well, or going in our direction or whatever. So we'll see what happens in a couple of weeks. I'll keep you posted on that kind of stuff. But I don't want to spend too much time on the COVID-19 on this podcast, despite the working title being the QC, which is Quarantine Chronicles. I'd rather focus more on what do we do when we get out of this quarantine, right? Or, technically everyone's not quarantined, but, by definition. But it's a catchy name, and Social Isolation Chronicles sounds like shit. So we're going to go with Quarantine Chronicles, and knowing full well that we're not quarantined at the moment. But yeah, I just kind of want to hear out loud and kind of work through what are our options when we get out of this. Everything, if there's anything that we know for sure in this reality, dramatic pause while I drink water. If there's one thing we know for sure, it's that everything's temporary, right? Nothing in this reality that we're all experiencing is permanent or will last forever. From something as small as like a housefly who only lives for a matter of days to the planet that we're on, or even the universe, eventually it will all end. What happens when it ends, we don't know, and we won't know until it ends, and we have to experience it. But yeah, none of this lasts forever. So in that same respect, this pandemic, this quarantine that we're currently living in, this is going to have to end too. So eventually, something has to happen. Whether it's everybody goes back to work and things just go right back to normal, or a new version of that normal, or potentially a very different version of that normal. We're creating a completely new normal, which I think I'm more in favor of improving the old normal. If I had my way, I'd like to. I don't know. The one thing I've been talking a lot about recently is a people's union. So a lot of industries have unions that represent their behalf, that'll fight for better wages, make sure you've got, adequate health care and retirement, insurances, all that kind of stuff. I went to high school in Long Beach, California, San Pedro, and there's a lot of longshoremen out there, which are the people that work at the port who take all the containers off of those ships that come in from China and all these other countries and load them onto trucks on the back of a semi-trailer that semi will drive and take it wherever it needs to go. Or potentially, I don't believe they go onto trains. I'm pretty sure it's just trucks. But I don't know. I wasn't a longshoreman. Didn't get too deep into that world. But anyway, what I do know is that their unions are very, very effective. And it's very difficult to get in to be a longshoreman because the benefits of being a longshoreman are so great compared to pretty much any other industry in that area, any other career opportunity. Longshoreman's pretty cush out there. I mean, you definitely make six figures. And again, like I said, you get all life insurance, health insurance, all that stuff is negotiated on your behalf by a union. Now, you pay that union, right? You pay your dues. They get a cut. But isn't that what the government's doing now? Like, aren't we giving the government a pretty decent cut of how much money we make in order for them to look out for our interests and our needs? And how many of you would say that your interests and needs have been adequately looked after? I mean, look at this, in this crisis, in this quarantine, right? This social distancing where most people are staying home. There are some people who, are doing whatever the hell they want because they either think it's not real or, think the rules don't apply to them, whatever. But most people, I would argue the majority of people in the United States right now, and potentially even all over the world, are staying home most days of the week, leaving the house 1 to 2 times a week, trying their best based on their individual circumstance. They're trying their best to abide by, these suggestions, I guess we'll say. The guidance coming from CDC, World Health Organization, all those people. But while they're doing that, who's looking out for them, right? We have most employers have let people go. I, for one, have been let go. I'm a 1099 contracted worker, and the company I work for decided not to go and try to get the small business loans or whatever stimulus packages that are out there for businesses to keep people on. They decided, nope, just, we're going to call it. So good luck figuring out how the hell you're going to pay your bills. And I think a lot of people are in that position. If you were a non-essential, right, which grocery stores, post offices, things that have to continue in the background in order for the people that are stuck at home to still be able to have basic things like electricity and water and things mailed to them that are hopefully essential things from Amazon or wherever. Speaking of which, please try to use eBay over Amazon. Think about who you're buying from, right? This is a strange time, but it's an opportunity for us to think a little bit more about the consequences of your actions, the ripple effect, who's benefiting, right? Money, there's a lot of things on the table about changing this money. There's proposals to completely take down the US dollar and incorporate something different during this time, giving us fake money, which, I mean, depending on how deep you want to dive into money, the whole idea's got a little tint of fakeness to it as it is. But point is, there's some essential people that are still working, but a lot of people are not. And those people that are not working, I mean, most people are living paycheck to paycheck. So we've been self-isolating for at least a few weeks. So now, in the next, 10 days or so, I think it's really going to get hard for some people. People who don't have savings, which, I mean, do your own Googling, but there's a staggering number of people that don't have savings. that are living paycheck to paycheck. In fact, I've got my computer here. How many people in U.S. live paycheck to paycheck? Let's see what the Google machine has to say about that. Okay. A near majority of Americans, 49%, this is according to WashingtonExaminer.com. Also, there's a link on there, money.cnn.cnn. Maybe that's just a tag or a credit or whatever. But 49% are living paycheck to paycheck, according to a new survey by the First National Bank of Omaha. The survey also found that 53% of respondents do not have an emergency fund that covers at least 3 months of expenses. Boom. Okay. That's good enough to work with here. Again, do your own research if you want, like, more comprehensive information on this. But I would say this sounds pretty accurate. Of the people that I know, the majority of them live paycheck to paycheck, regardless of their level, like their tax bracket. Even people who bring in a lot of money, a big issue before this quarantine crisis, is, the more money you made, the more money you spent. I have a friend who's a lawyer. I've got a friend who, God, let me think of all the people. I've got, obviously, musicians. Those poor people have been exploited for a very long time, despite the joy that they bring to us. So musicians, like I said, a friend that's a lawyer who makes, a ridiculous amount of money. Even he, he's struggling right now, having to support all the things that he has to, financially support. As you make more money, you keep up with the Joneses. So my point is, even the people who make not a lot of money, so the median income on this graph was $25,000, even people who are making $60,000 a year, in a lot of cases, don't have $10,000, $20,000 in the bank in case something goes wrong. The majority of people were expecting things to just keep moving along so they could keep making money, and you make money, you spend money, right? And so when you're in a union, though, however, I'd be willing to bet that most of these union workers are still making money. They still have income coming in. They still have their benefits, regardless of the fact that the ports are shut down right now. These longshoremen still have money coming in because they have a union fighting for them, right? Teachers, when they shut down schools, they didn't just say, okay, good luck to you. No, I guarantee the unions were like, okay, well, these people still need to make money. So how are they going to continue to make money? Okay, cool. Let's figure out this, online schooling thing. Let's slap that together real fast. And then boom, almost overnight, now we've got everyone's being homeschooled by their regular teachers, and life goes on. Those people are still making money, right? So, gotta sneeze. Come on. Sorry. Can't help that one. So the point is, I think it would be an incredible thing if some smart and also financially well-off people could put together a union for people. Like, why do we have lobbyists? I know why, but it is a problem for me that we have lobbyists in Washington, D.C., and all over. They're in every Capitol building, but they're lobbying for the interests of businesses, of industries, right? There's big pharma, there's big dairy, there's big chicken, according to speaking of big chicken, quick shout out Morgan Spurlock, you are a genius. That Super Size Me 2 Big Chicken is free right now on YouTube. It's free with ads. I think the ads are like your standard ad. You can click right through it after the 10 seconds, I think, 15 seconds, whatever. Definitely worth it, though. A good watch for sure. It exploits some of the things that other documentaries had shed light on about how awful the chicken industry is. But additionally, it also put a really big focus on advertising and marketing and how we're basically being lied to every day. When you go and buy a crispy chicken sandwich, it's still fried chicken, but they don't use the F word. in advertising. Now it's crispy and all this other crap. I'm not going to give you too much information because I want you to go watch it. I hope he can get the views and the support that he deserves because he is a brilliant documentarian. Anyway, that's a great documentary that exploits some of the issues going on, and lost my train of thought there for a second. A people's union, yes, lobbyists, right? So there's big chicken lobbies. There's lobbies for all sorts of things, and I don't think that the people, the 99%, the vast majority whose backs off of people are making a whole lot of money and are prospering and being able to turn the tides how they individually want because they have the money. You look at Amazon, Jeff Bezos, you look at Facebook and Zuckerberg, like these people, Bill Gates, they're doing whatever they want. Elon Musk, who I feel like is the one person who's doing it for us, who has our interests, the humanity's interests at heart. But he also has to answer to shareholders, right? Which is the issue. That's where the collusion comes in. That's where having a lobby that's representing this corporation, which means they're really looking after the interests of the stockholders, the shareholders, which means if it's not making money, well, then it's not in its best interest. And that's not necessarily true. There are a lot of things that are profitable that aren't good for humanity or aren't good for don't benefit the greater good of the people, the vast majority of people that are sharing this world, this space, right? When, let's see, when a pork farm, right, a pig farm decides, well, instead of responsibly disposing of these waste products, it would be a lot cheaper and more profitable to just dump it into the local waterways, into the river, or let it run off into the nearest stream, which then will end up in the river and then slowly, systematically pollute and contaminate the local waterways, which most people get their water from, unless you have a well. But even, water is cyclical, right? So if you pollute one molecule of water, right, that is going to then dilute, and it's going to go from a 1% to 1/1,000,000%. But over time, continually, that number is going to rise. Even if super fractionally, there will be a time when there's too much, and people are going to get sick, and it's not going to be good for people. So that's an example of cutting a corner to save money, but it having far-reaching effects that the individual person who's violating this thing doesn't think about, doesn't consider, doesn't care. Maybe I don't know to what level that person thinks about this decision, but I do know that there are several of them making the wrong decision right now, every day, continually deciding to make the wrong choice and negatively impact other people on this planet. And those are the kinds of things that I think could be prevented if we had people in Capitol buildings that are arguing for the interest of the people. And I know that the system that was set up, these elected officials were supposed to be that, right? That was supposed to be the balance. We were supposed to have people that were local, that knew us, that knew our struggles, that could speak on behalf of the constituents in that area. Yes, look, this is the majority of people here. This is how they live. These are the issues that they're running into. And these are the things that I think would benefit my people, right? That was the idea of local government. But what's happened is money has inserted itself into the system. And now we don't have politicians that are looking out for people. I want to say somewhere in the 70s, I believe, the 60s or 70s, one of our presidents decided to give corporations, companies, the same rights as an individual. And from what I understand of my limited information, is that once that happened, now if I'm, for instance, Walmart, I now can pay for a lobbyist to go be in the state capitol to lobby on my behalf, because I'm a person. My interests as a company are equal in the eye of government as an individual person. So what they're saying is, if Walmart's in there saying, hey, we want, whatever, give us a break on these emissions because, we can only ship so much stuff under that umbrella, give us a bigger umbrella so we can make more money, relax these sanctions or these restrictions or whatever. They're saying that's the same thing as me going in there saying, hey, well, I'll give you a great example. The roads out here where we live, I live outside of city limits in Fayetteville, Arkansas, and there's a bunch of quarries out here, and these giant gravel trucks go up and down this little road that was not designed for this much traffic, especially not the kind of weight that these trucks carry. And the roads are awful. I mean, there's potholes, at least a new one, once a month, probably closer to once a week. I just haven't paid close enough attention to commit to once a week. But I feel like between my house and the freeway, which is, I think, 1.5 miles, once a week, there's new potholes that we're either swerving or we're trying, running over, which is affecting your tires, affecting the road itself, making the pothole worse. And so if I wanted to go to my state capitol building, go to whatever, I think there's a mayor out here. I can probably go talk to him. But that's another thing too, right? Politics is so freaking compartmentalized that who do you talk to about what? Right? You've got a congressman, you've got a senator, you've got state representatives, you've got mayors, you've got governors. Who the hell are you supposed to go and talk to about your individual needs? And I think it's intentionally complicated because they don't want you to go and tell them what's wrong, right? They don't want to hear everybody's concerns. They just want to hear the ones bad enough that somebody had to finally come in because it was so bad. They don't want to hear, oh, my roads suck, because most people aren't going to come in and do that, right? But if there's a really serious issue, like during this, what do we want to call it, this pandemic, there's a lot of people who are renting. And in Northwest Arkansas, I've seen a lot of people reporting on Facebook, which is really the only trusted news source anymore, that there are a lot of people whose landlords are saying, hey, you can't, you got to pay your rent. And if you don't pay your rent, we're going to kick you out. And the governor's like, oh, that's not going to happen. We've already talked to people. But the individual people that are living in these apartments, because you know damn well Asa Hutchinson isn't living in a fucking apartment. That dude's got a mansion because he gets paid a crap ton of money by all the people who basically own him, whose interests are going to be looked out for because they pay him or incentivize him to look out for his interests, which is the number one problem in politics. We need to get money out of politics. It's ridiculous. There should be a cap on how much money you can spend, and the news should have to frickin' give everybody equal time and let the people decide who gets more time, not let the money decide who gets more time on screen and therefore more likely to be elected. So my point is, Hutchinson has no idea what these people are going through, but he's the person evidently with the power to force these landlords to let these people stay while we figure out what the heck is going to happen in this country. Like, it is absurd to me that there's a person or multiple people that are managing these properties that are saying, yeah, fuck those people. Like, I understand a lot of people are dying right now and this thing is super contagious and we don't want people out of their houses, but I'm going to force these people out because they're not paying their rent, because they can't pay their rent because nobody's fucking working. Like, a vast majority of people are not able to just work from home, especially people living in apartments. Think about your own life and your own journey and your own progression of, not physical assets, but like as you, let's say when you start out at 18, 19, whenever you left the house and you lived on your own, where'd you go live in? An apartment, right? So that's one small part of, or a small percentage of who's living in apartments. But those count. So you've got people who are just out of high school who are working, probably, like, we'll use my little brother's 21 years old, lives in Phoenix, Arkansas, Jesus. Phoenix, Arizona. And he works at a grocery store, bagging groceries, and then he got promoted to stocking stuff. Like, that's a normal progression for somebody in that age bracket under 21, 22. You're either in college or you're working a shitty job and you're working your way up. You're paying your dues and getting paid not very much, so you can't afford to go out and buy a house, right? Yes, mortgage companies are being a lot more lenient about these things, but by the time you're in a financial position to buy a home, you probably are more well off financially and more stable than an 18 to 20-year-old kid working part-time at Sonic. So those people are the ones living in these apartments who don't have any other options if they get kicked out of this apartment. You also have people who had a house, had something terrible happen, and had to move out, right? So you have people who are down on their, having whatever, a downtime in their life financially, so they're living in an apartment. Like, you don't have people that are very financially well off living in apartments. You have people who are probably scraping by or a little bit better than that who are living in apartments. It's not normally your ideal choice to be living in an apartment, but those are the people who are about to be very negatively affected, or at least being threatened right now by these money-hungry property management companies. And that's awful, right? These people shouldn't have to be afraid that they're going to be homeless because of a situation that they have zero control over. And the fact that our governments aren't doing enough, I mean, immediately, I don't know how we don't just come out with a statement that says, look, nobody's getting kicked out of their home, right? Boom. That's not a big stretch. Like, if mortgage companies and banks are going to be lenient on loans, that means the people that own these buildings aren't going to have to pay their rent on that building. They're not going to pay their mortgage on that building, which means they don't need the money from the people. So it's absurd to me that there's nobody acting on behalf of the people right now. There's nobody out there saying, hey, my people need to get paid. They need to pay for food. They have basic essentials like toilet paper and hand sanitizer during this crisis. What about gloves? Like non-medical gloves, non-medical face masks. Like, how is that something that's not just being provided? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. If it's something that would benefit, that would not take away from hospitals and people in these incredibly dangerous environments that need 3M masks, they need, hospital grade, three layers, all the things, ventilators, respirators, whatever, all the things that would actually filter out somebody else dispelling this this virus from their body. If you're just going to the grocery store or going to Lowe's or whatever, you don't need that mask. If the general population was wearing just a simple mask that would stop fluid from coming out of their mouth, that would greatly lower the infection rate. And the CDC and all these people knew that from the beginning because it's the same concept as the flu. It's spread very similarly, right? This is a heck of a lot more contagious from what we understand so far, but you could use the same preventative measures, and the issue was we didn't have the materials, stocked up anywhere to be able to just issue it to the people. So they kind of drug their feet like, ooh, we don't know. We're not sure if it's good. They knew. It's this. They always knew. And there's no reason why wearing your own mask, assume, again, if it's not taking away from a medical worker or a cop or who, you know what I mean? The people who have to be facing other people and need it to be filtered. If it's not taking away from that, they've always known that it would be a good idea, just in case, to wear some sort of mask. What they didn't want to happen was people to be panicking, which naturally happened because people are, again, living paycheck to paycheck, where most people have very uncertain tomorrows. Most people don't know where they're going to be in 5 years. You know, people like Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos, they've got a pretty good idea. Even if the shit hits the fan and everything falls apart, they've still got money places where they could have, they've got backup plans. Your average American does not have a backup plan. Your average American goes to work every day and is like, cool, I really hope I keep this job because I want to keep paying my bills and like keep living. So I think it was negligent that we didn't have anyone looking out for the people in a situation like this. And going forward, because there's nothing we can do about what happened previously, but what we can do is learn from it and build on it. So if we had a people's union, if we had lobbyists for big people, right? The people, whatever, the people's lobby, if we had something like that going forward, we would be able to have somebody saying, okay, government, you're taking all of this money from the people, and what are you doing with it? You've been wasting it for decades. You're dumping it into, foreign wars we don't need to be in. All of these covert, there's a lot of stuff that's not above board. It's not like, we can't see it. It's not transparent. And I think that's a lot of the reason we don't trust our government is, A, they've given us reason to show that they can't be trusted. They've done some pretty sketchy shit. For those of you who want some examples, Iran-Contra affair is one that comes to mind right away. There was a lot of Jim Crow. I'm trying to think of all the ones right off the top of my head. Again, I want to preface, I did not come into the studio prepared with an agenda. I just wanted to start talking. I feel like, I don't know, it's felt weird not interviewing people and learning from them and continuing to grow. This, for me, the hardest part of this isolation period is I've been gaining a whole lot of fulfillment in my life from just learning, from growing. It feels incredible to grow. And every person that I've talked to has contributed to my growth in some way. And I'm very disappointed that because of this specific situation, it's in everybody's best interest not to come on here, because even though I've isolated, I haven't been, I went to the store probably 3 or 4 days ago, but I think most people, I included, have been much more aware and safe about like washing my hands and what am I touching? Does that mean like what have other people touched and how much of that am I touching, right? Like, so grabbing something off the shelf, like you got to assume that person wasn't wearing gloves or didn't wash their hands or whatever. So everything in your cart is dirty. So you got to be careful when you open that box, right? Once you get the stuff out of the container, well, that stuff should have been done, by an assembly line or a machine. So that hopefully shouldn't be carrying coronavirus. Anyway, I'm getting way off track here, but this episode, I guess, has been kind of around the People's Union because I really think we need it. I really think that the average person would benefit from being a part of something like that. Not a union where you're like a transparent union. The government is supposed to be the people's union, but it's not that anymore. Government has gotten way too big, and it no longer has the interest of the people at the top of its forefront. Look at this crisis right now. Every elected official's priority is the economy. What are we going to do when we get out of this thing? People still have to have jobs to go to. Why? Why do they still have to go to jobs? That was what it was before. But there's nothing says we have to go back to the old way. What we do know is if a lot of people don't get money soon, things are going to get kind of ugly. There's a vast majority of people that I'm seeing in my own circle that can't get unemployment, who don't have a business. A lot of people don't own businesses. The majority of people are not business owners. So these small business loans, while they're great for the people who do have those businesses, a lot of people don't have that. And so unless you were getting a W-2, which I'm sure is the majority, let's look up that. How many people in U.S. have W-2 income? What's the percentage here? How about this? Percentage of people? Okay, here we go. W-2 wage statistics. Let's try that. I don't know if this is going to tell me what I want to know, but I'm sure there's a substantial percentage of people who don't get a W-2. All right. Summary of items for tax values. Yeah, I might need to look at this later. This doesn't look like it's going to tell me that. Yeah, taxpayers with Okay. The IRS doesn't want to tell me. Okay. Anyway, I would imagine there are a good amount of people who are 1099 workers. Like, I feel like, actually, I think this thing's going to show me right here. Evaluating the growth of the 1099 workforce. There we go. For example, percentage of non-farm employed who are self-employed. I guess it's been going down. Okay. Looks like in the 40s, there's about 14 to 15% of people who... Wow. So I guess it's not that many. Okay. It's less than 10%. It looks like 7-ish% is the number we're working with. So if we have, 353 million, right? 353 times. That's a 0.07 for you folks who don't know how to calculate 7%. So that's 24.7 million people. Wow. 24.7 million people are not W-2 workers, and that's non-farm. So that doesn't include farm people. So probably add another couple, another million, 2 million for farm people. That's a lot of people who are unemployed right now, who aren't eligible for unemployment until later in the month for some reason. I guess they're going to come up with a new form for people that are 1099. But anyway, 24 million people, right? That's a whole heck of a lot of people whose needs are not being represented right now, whose interests are not being represented right now. So if we had something like a people's union, or hell, a 1099 union. I don't know. I think it needs to be grander. I think it just needs to be a lobby of people that try to balance this disparity between corporate lobbyists jostling for their interests and the individual people's interests being represented equally when it comes to legislation. There's just too much corruption. There's too much money in politics, and right now, money is what makes the world go round. Right now, if you've got the money, you've got the power. You've got the ability for your voice to be heard. And that's a serious issue when most people don't have money. That means most people's needs or issues aren't being heard. Not well enough. So, yeah, I don't know how to do something like this. I think it would need to be very big, right? I mean, the People's Union, 24 million people. I cannot handle the needs of 24 million people. Like, that's just not realistic. So it would have to be, something fairly large in size with a good amount of people. But there's a lot of people right now that aren't doing anything at all. So what the hell? I mean, why can't we put something like this together? I don't know. I think that's desperately needed, though, and I don't think I need to be, I've been struggling with this quote. So there's this quote that I want to touch on because I struggle a lot with, like, a feeling of, well, who the hell am I? Like, why would anybody listen to me, right? Like, what things have I accomplished? What have I done to I don't know, earn clout or whatever? Like, who the hell am I to be talking about these things? And, why would my opinions matter? But there was a quote that somebody that I heard the other day that it's freaking been ringing in my ears is, if not me, then who? And if not now, then when? And I've been repeating that to myself. I mean, it's been playing over and over and over since I heard that quote. If not me, then who? And if not now, then when? Like, why can't I have these ideas that are legitimate ideas that could work, that are worth exploring, right? Why not? Because I haven't spent a decade in politics, which we all know is vastly corrupted? Like, why is that a positive thing? Why is that a mark in the pro column that I've been around this corrupt organization, this corrupt way of doing things? I feel like when our government was very young, when this country was very young, we didn't look after people who knew how to manipulate and lie and, bend and break rules in order to get to the top. I don't think those were the people that we were electing to represent our needs. I feel like the people we were electing and basically forcing to, like, I feel like it was more of a duty. It was, some people felt an obligation the same way some felt, an obligation to join the military or be a firefighter or be a cop. Like, there were people, and I think there still are people who feel this moral obligation to try to give back and better, society and better their communities. And, some people are just born with that gene. And then there's, some people aren't. There's people who are born with a gene that think it's cool to throw fucking McDonald's cups out their windows. I've seen it. I've watched it here in Arkansas. I've personally watched people that I'm behind in my car driving down the road who think it's okay to just throw trash out of their window. Not, well, let me just pull into a fucking gas station that has free trash cans. You pull up to the pump and you can throw your trash away in that trash can. But they feel that it's too inconvenient to dispose of their own garbage that it's okay for them to just chuck it out their window. So just like there's people that feel that way, there are people who feel a moral obligation or a duty to serve people. And I'm sure a lot of it has to do with their upbringing, and maybe some of it is just in your DNA. But I think those are the people that we need to be going after. I think those are the people who are going to do their best job that they can, because they know the stakes are high and they know, who it impacts. It impacts the people that they grew up with. It impacts the people that they live next to, right? Most of these politicians are millionaires. I mean, let's pull that one up too. Percentage of politicians, cool, that are millionaires. Number two, I like these other ones. Anyway, number 2 on my search results on Google, percentage of politicians, and the number 2 is that are millionaires, then that went to private school, and then, of course, who are psychopaths. I appreciate that psychopath question. 38% of the women in Congress are millionaires. Oh, this is just Congress. I don't want Congress. I want all politicians. Why is it all Congress? Why is everybody mad about Congress and not senators, governors? Why you just give a shit about congressmen? Okay, this is back from 2012. That's the last time we gave a shit. First thing, Congress again. Wow. Congress had a median net worth in 2012 of $1 million. Median net worth of all the people in Congress made that kind of money. Average was, $6 million in 2004 up to $7.8 in 2011. That's for Congress. U.S. Senate, 2004, the House average was $4.2 million. 2011, 6.5. 6.5. Oh, sorry, that's U.S. Representatives. Excuse me. U.S. Senate is much worse, but it's gone down. That's kind of cool. Sorry, U.S. Representatives, 2004 is 4.2 million. And then 2011 is 6.5. The U.S. Senate, 2004 was 14.45 million. And then 2011 was 14 million. So it went down by 50 grand. Or sorry, 450 grand. What a sacrifice when you're making 14 million. Damn, it jumped in 2007 up to 17 million, and then it dropped down in 2008 to 13. That's really interesting. Well, there's less people, looks like, too, less reports. Okay. U.S. Senate Democrats, 2004, 21 million is the average. Wow. U.S. Senate average is 21 million. Incredible. 2012, down to 13.5. That's cool. U.S. House Representatives, 2.5 million in 2004, up to 5.7 in 2012. That's for the Democrats. And the Republicans, Democratic Senates. This is interesting. U.S. Senate Democrats in 2004 made 21.6, and Republican U.S. Senate in 2004 reported 8 million to 21 million. Wow. And then 2012, the Senate average was 6.9, and in 2012, the Democrat was 13. So still double. Almost 3 times Democrats paid themselves. Wow. Son of a bee. The corruption is just insane. Anyway, that's the amount of money. Millions and millions of dollars in this deal here. Wow. I want to see governors. Can I see governors? Senators. Wow. Average net worth. Mark Warner, who's a senator of... I don't fucking know. Let's see. Mark Warner, where are you a senator of? Virginia. Cool. Mark Warner, senator of Virginia, has a net worth of $257 million. That guy is worth $257 million. Why? Why would anybody whose interest is supposed to be of the regular people, the majority of the people, that's your job, that's who you're looking out for, but you're worth $257 million. What the hell does Mark Warner know about anybody making $50,000 a year? That is insane. God, that's insane. All right, so that's the top 10 senators in 2012, and then the bottom 12. Look at that, Mark Pryor. I think that's frickin' Arkansas. Mark Pryor. Come on, Google. It is. That's awesome. Former Democratic member of the U.S. Senate in the state of Arkansas. Now it's Tom Cotton. I'm sure he paying himself more. Anyway, he was only average net worth was $8,500. That's freaking awesome. Like that seems super low. That seems like what I'm worth. $8,000 should be a little higher probably, but $257 million versus $8,500. Like, I think it should be a little bit closer to the bottom. Anyway, I have some crazy ideas about politics or politicians and what they should be able to make. I think there should be the same way an organization. So working for Best Buy, what they would do pretty much every year, sometimes more than once a year, sometimes every other year, but they would do what was called a reorg, where they would go in and trim the fat, a lot like Office Space. Those of you that have seen that movie, they have a specific like team that is constantly working on how do we consolidate, how do we make more money with less people. And that means typically what they would do is they would find two people that are doing half of a job, or two people that are doing two different jobs, but you could combine those jobs into one and then fire both of them, but then rehire or interview both of them to hire one for this new position. So they take two people that are doing basically one job, and then, or what will be one job, right? It wasn't always one job, and that's where it gets kind of tricky, because on one hand, yeah, you don't want two people doing half of a job, right? That would be wasteful. That would be inefficient, an inefficient use of resources. But that's not always the same thing as saying, okay, well, you're in charge of logistics and you're in charge of embarkation. Now we're just going to make one person in charge of logistics and embarkation. Like, that's a very different thing. And that's a lot of times what happens in these reorgs is it's like, well, we could put those together, so let's put those together. We'll keep one of them. The other person, will give them a little bit of money that'll get them through long enough to find another job. And then, after that, fuck them. Like, that's not our problem. We got one person, the better of the two, the more qualified of the two, which is, again, for an organization, that's not the worst thing in the world, right? But for the people, it's not great. But so when you do that, there are like pay structures. Like in the military, there's G12, G13, whatever. The longer you've been in, the more qualified you are, the more able you are to do your job, the more money you make, right? But it's a pay scale. There is no fluctuation. There's no one G13 making $257 million and one that's making $8,000. Like, that's not how it works. There's checks and balances. There's structure that makes sure that there's no giant disparities. And I think in politics, in government, if we do that for government workers, civilians in government, they have these pay scales. Why is that not applied to elected officials in government. Like that's what confuses me, and I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed. Is okay, if you're a governor, cool, you can make $200,000 a year. That's enough for you not to have another job. But it's not so much that you would be taken out of probably your neighborhood or your community. You might buy a nicer house in that community, but making $200,000 a year, while it is a whole lot of money, it's not the same as making $200 million a year, right? That's a huge, huge difference. So like your governor, which based on this crisis seems like the top dog of each state, like that person makes $200,000, then you go to, congressmen, cool, you guys make $150,000, and then senators, you make $150,000, like, you know what I mean? Like, and then if you're a mayor, you make $100,000 or $75,000, which if you were working a regular job anywhere, you're probably not making $75,000. If you're an average person in Fayetteville, Arkansas, if you're not an executive for one of these big corporations like Walmart or J.B. Hunt or Tyson, like, you're probably not making that kind of money. I think the median income out here, well, shoot, I got Google here. Median income, Arkansas. So $45,000. Yeah, I'm right. According to the Census ACS 1-year survey, the median household income for Arkansas was $45,869 in 2017, which is the latest figures available. Compared to the median U.S. household income, Arkansas median household income is $14,467 lower. So sounds like the average on U.S. is about $60,000, give or take, and Arkansas is at $45,000. So if you're the average person, which, I mean, that's going to be the best representation of what's happening in our state and what needs to improve. Like, you getting $75,000 or even $100,000 a year is going to be a huge difference for you. That's going to be a big motivator for you to want to serve your community, serve the people who live around you, which is what I think government should be about. It should be like I feel like we should almost have to write in anybody that we want to be a politician. Like, you shouldn't be able to want to be a politician. I think you should have to do it because the people elected you to do it, because you're good at what you do, or because you have some good ideas, or because you have, the leadership qualities that we would want in somebody looking out for our benefits. I think those are the people that should be put into these positions, not people who are so good at playing the game and greasing the right palms and, kissing babies and shake all that crap. Like, those people shouldn't be the ones we're electing. But the current system we have, you don't have a whole lot of options. You pick the lesser of the two evils that are on the ballot that are presented to you by these giant billion-dollar organizations that are the Democrat and Republican parties. They have so much money because they've made so many deals with corporations and lobbyists that they can buy elections. That's what they're doing. Look at the Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden thing. Nobody's voting for Joe Biden. Like, I have not heard from a single person that I know in my life who wants Joe Biden to be president. But the DNC is saying, nope, no Bernie. Nope, sorry, you get to pick from Biden or Trump. Like, why, when everyone that I can see, everyone I've talked to, understands that Biden's full of shit, he's corrupt, he's bought and paid for. The same way that Obama was. Evidently, I haven't done my own research, but evidently there was an email from, I want to say, Citibank to Obama that handpicked his entire cabinet. There's an email out there that has been released that showed before he announced his cabinet, Citibank saying, hey, these are the people that you're going to put in these positions. And he did. Biden was a part of that. Biden's a part of that thing. Like, that's insane to me that I know that people are going to comment and talk shit about that. Like, yeah, well, Trump this. Like, I'm not talking about in favor of Trump. This has nothing to do with This has nothing to do with anyone but the people that I'm talking about. This happened. Allegedly. But it wouldn't surprise me. Like, that's my issue more than anything. Whether or not it happened, the fact that most people would not be surprised if that came out to be true, that is my issue. That is my root issue with this thing. I don't care whether or not it happened. The fact that I'm not shocked at all to hear about something like this is what infuriates me about our political system right now. The fact that it is so believable that a politician would take all this money. I mean, look at these people making hundreds of millions of dollars talking to a room of people. About what? What the hell is Hillary Clinton qualified to talk about? Or any politician? Like, I don't get it. Mike Pence. Who the fuck would pay Mike Pence to come talk about anything? Like, it's a shell game. They're just moving these numbers around, and it's all coming back to them. They all have these giant foundations and these giant nonprofits that, are worth billions and several hundreds of millions of dollars. That money all gets back to them through loopholes, through tax different things, through having counts in other places. Those are not the people that I want arguing on my behalf, is my point. Those are not the people that I want representing me in closed-door meetings when they're deciding what the new laws are going to look like. I want people who are living my life, that have lived my life. These people have never lived my life or anything close to the life that I've lived. So what the hell do they know about my interests or what would be best for me? They don't, and that's my issue. So whether we can fix or impose these restrictions on the government, I think that's going to be difficult because you'd have to find someone who could run for government, pretend to be what everyone else is, and then when they finally make it there and they've, sacrificed all the lambs and drank the blood from the goblets and, taken this money that, implicates them, and like, there's so many things that you would have to do in order to rise to that level to then still have the fortitude to say, nope, I'm going to restrict my own power and, make less money. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think that's the way it's going to happen. I don't think we're going to be able to infiltrate and fool these giant organizations that care about one thing, and that's power and money. And they've already got the money, and so the only way for them to maintain that money is to maintain the power. So they're not going to be like, oh, sure, we don't know if you're going to be on our side or not, but go ahead and take this seat that would affect us. Like, they're not going to do that. That would be very stupid, and these people are anything but stupid. They are very smart, they are very crafty, and they've inserted themselves into positions of power and decision-making. They get to make decisions for us, and that, I think, is a very big issue. So a people's union would be something to combat that, something to say, okay, hold on, I get that the government's corrupt, but the people still have to be represented. Like, I feel like at this point, I'm comfortable with the compromise of, okay, I'm willing to look the other way. I'm trying to find the right euphemism or whatever. I'm willing to look the other way or pretend that this whole thing isn't corrupt and you guys aren't lining your pockets and you're not, invading countries to further whatever your agenda is. I'm willing to look the other way so long as the people get to live a life that makes them, better or more fulfilled or whatever, or benefited. The people need to benefit if you're going to benefit. Like, you want to play war games and, slowly destroy the environment. Well, then the people need to be able to have the funds available to fix the crap that you're doing, to combat the damage you are doing to the environment, to, be able to homeschool your kid if you want to, which most people can't do because you have to have both people working in your household in order to make ends meet. Like, people aren't making enough money to live comfortably. People are making just enough money to keep working at Walmart, to keep working at Amazon, so that those people can live well beyond their means and do whatever the hell they want. Most people are scraping by while this is happening. All I'm saying is a people's union would be able to let people flourish at the same time as these business owners, these giant corporation owners can make. Like, it should just be a little more even. Not completely even. I'm not talking about, communism or socialism where like everybody's sharing the same pool. Let's just try to level it out a little bit, because I think for at least as long as I've been alive, I haven't seen anything else. I've only lived in a time where, you're going to go to work and make someone else money. And you don't have a whole lot of stay-at-home moms anymore, because unless dad works, as an executive at one of these big companies or is significantly more successful than the average husband, or, again, not assigning gender roles, stay-at-home dads, working moms, whatever. I don't care who stays home. That's not the point. A stay-at-home spouse and a working spouse, like, that's not very common anymore because of the wage disparity. And if one member of that household is, making $40,000 a year, which, let's say 45. We're in Arkansas, 45,869. Okay, let's round it to 46 grand a year. 46 grand a year is the median household income. Like, that's not a lot of money. That's not a lot of money to be able to buy a home. That's what most cars cost. Like, if you want an SUV, if you want more than one kid, like, unless you're going to cram them in the back of a Honda Civic, like, you're going to need a larger vehicle, which you have to go into debt in order to acquire, which is a separate issue. But the whole point is that we need to level things out. I think that a people's union would be something that could accomplish that. People who take a small amount of dues and go and fight against the government on your behalf. People who will be in those backdoor meetings. That's their whole job, is to be in those closed door meetings in the Capitol building when they decide, well, how much should minimum wage be next year? Or, should we have something in place that, some sort of a rainy day fund for when something like this happens again, so that people can get paid, so they can still maintain their job and their income and their lifestyle during some crazy thing like this. And this is honestly, this is probably the mildest so far. We haven't come out of this yet. But really, this is the mildest catastrophe compared to things like solar flares. Like, we know those things can impact our planet. We've seen them. We know that they happen. So when they do happen, what the heck are we going to do? Volcanoes, right? We know volcanoes on this planet can erupt. They have erupted. We know that Yellowstone is due based on the science that's been done and the records that we have. And if that were to happen, a whole lot of the middle of the country, a large portion would be either destroyed by the eruption itself or very, very seriously impacted by the blackout that would happen from all of the ash that would be in our atmosphere. Like, it would block out the sun. And if there's no sun, we have no warmth. It's going to be cold as shit. So but what do we have in place for that? Do we have a task force for that that's ready and that's talking about that kind of stuff? Hell no. What about another tsunami or a hurricane or tornado? Like, we're not planners. We're not planning for when these things happen. The same way that we're not in a culture of preventative medicine. It's, oh, you're sick? All right, let's try to figure it out. Let's see what we can do now. Instead of, well, how do we make our population the healthiest population possible while still maintaining the illusion of freedom that this country currently displays? Like, how do we do that? How do we maintain this thing? And that's the real question. And I don't know that I have the answers. I would just like to be a part of the conversation. I'd like to be involved in that meeting where I want to ask the questions. Like, I want to moderate that debate of, okay, you want to be, in charge of the people, or you want to have the power of, deciding what happens to the people. Well, then what's your plan for this? And, like, is that actually a good plan? I don't know. Like, where are the economists and the people that are doing all these projections for what's going to happen if? Like, do we have projections for that? Is anybody looking at those? Because we need to be. We cannot continue to just wing it, and when a bad thing happens, we're just like, all right, well, let's figure it out now. Now that all these people are sick and scared and there's this ridiculous level of uncertainty, like, why? There's no reason for it. That's what's so frustrating to me. I don't understand why we're still playing that game. Like, all that needs to happen is people need to come together and decide, no, we want this new thing. Because everything in this country, in this crazy weird experiment that we're all participating in, where, like, we're just trying new things. We're allowing people to wing it. I have it written down here, what I had said about that. Well, too much dead space. I'm going to cut that out. Anyway, this country is an experiment, right? We're just winging it. We showed up and did some savage, fucked up shit to the people who were already here. Some really, really awful things. And then basically told them, like, yeah, we're sorry and everything, but you just have to assimilate now. Like, just get with the program. It's check out the name tag. This is we're in charge now. So get with the program or fuck off is basically a very, very summarized way of explaining that, but I don't want to spend too much time on that. So we did that, And then we decided, all right, well, like, we don't want to answer to anybody. We're going to do our own thing over here without a dictatorship or some, bullshit king or queen that get to rule for no reason. Like, we're going to try to do things differently and let people just do whatever they want. And that was a beautiful idea, to just let the people control themselves. But that's not what it is anymore. Unfortunately, power is a delicious thing. Being in control is, I don't know, there's something about it in our DNA that makes you prioritize maintaining that power over what got you there or what you're supposed to be doing with that power. And what was it, like true power corrupts, something like that. Anyway, I'm going off on crazy tangents here. I don't even know. I think I've probably been talking way too long. Quick hour 16. Good Lord. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's good for today. I don't want to spend all day just talking forever. This is the first installment of the QC series, the Quarantine Chronicles, of the Soapbox Hero. I am Ian. I am your Soapbox Hero. I'd love to talk about whatever. If there's, I have a lot of questions. I think the next one I'm going to do, I want to have, a question that people can respond to and let me know how they feel about different things that because there's a lot of things where I'm like, there's no way I'm the only person, right? So we start that today. Okay. So the first question, this is question 1 of this series, is, how do you feel about the current state of, politics and government, and are your needs being represented? Like, you individually, as a person, are all the things that you would like to see in your community, in your reality, in this world, this country, whatever, the things that you want to see, are those things being represented? And if they're not, then why are you continuing to support and defend a political leaning that doesn't support or hasn't been able to effectively have your needs and views represented? Why are we continuing this system of picking the least of two evils? The Democrats don't give a shit about us. The Republicans don't give a shit about us. Good Lord, I can't talk. Okay, cut that out. The Republicans don't give a shit about us, about the average everyday person. The Democrats don't give a shit about the average everyday person. The career politician that is worth millions and millions of dollars does not have your interests at heart, and they have not historically had your interests at heart. So why are we continuing to play their game? The game of, we'll tell them whatever we need to say, we'll say it so that we can get elected. And then we don't do shit. We don't follow up on the promises. We just continue to do whatever we want. We might throw a bone or two to the people, but we're not actually going to lift the people up and let them thrive. And that's a problem. This country, again, is an experiment. Why can't we do that? Why can't we change that? And I think we can. So I want to hear from you. Are your needs being represented by the system that we're currently using? And if they're not, why are you continuing to defend it and play that game? Why are you still on social media talking shit about the right or the left? Why are you even using that language? It's further distancing us. It's further compartmentalizing the population. It's, well, you're in this group and I'm in this group and I'm also in this subgroup and I'm in this subgroup. We're isolating ourselves. We need to come together, not further distance ourselves based on ideologies or just silly shit that doesn't matter. Like, well, I'm a woman and I'm a man. Well, so what? What does that matter? I'm black, you're white. What? Like, none of that matters. We're people. We together are the group. We are the people that vote. We are the millions of people that decide these elections. Just because these people give us shitty choices doesn't mean we have to continue to pick one of their shitty choices. So I want to know what you think about that. However many listeners I have, please, I'll make a post about it on Instagram or Twitter when I release this. Put it in the comments on YouTube. Put it wherever you listen. Find a way to respond because I legitimately want to know. And, I think this is important. I think this is something that we all need to be talking about. We're all using a hammer that doesn't put a nail through wood. Like, we're all using this system that doesn't do what we actually want it to do. So when we come out of this thing, we have a lot of time to sit and do nothing. We have a lot of time to sit and think and plan and prepare. And why don't we do that? Let's use this downtime that we have to come together and talk about what we all want that would benefit us as a whole. No more left versus right. No more me versus you. Us versus them. The people versus the establishment, the system. We can elect whoever we want to whatever positions we want. It'll take work, but we've got the time now to do the work. So let's do the damn work. What better thing, like what is more important that you have going on? What could you possibly be doing that is more important than you getting what you want in this reality? I don't think there's anything more important to any of us. We all have ego. We all have self-preservation in mind. We all want the best for ourselves and, of course, the people around us, but you got to look out for number one first. So I don't feel like there's anybody that should be feeling anti getting the best thing for you. So I want to know what you think. Please reach out. Let me know. And I'll I'll open up the next podcast with any results or any comments that I hear from that. And then, go on another soapbox about different things we can do. I think I want to talk about a little bit of a mindfulness podcast about how people should be approaching it. I know Sid and I talked about that briefly, about like how you could use this as a positive thing and not dwell on the negative of, well, damn it, what's going to happen? I don't, what are things going to look like when we get out of this? Like, there's so much uncertainty. I think the next one I want to talk about a little bit is focusing on right now. Right now in this moment, everything's okay. Right now, April 7th, 2020, it's a beautiful day. It's 71 degrees. It's a little bit cloudy, not super humid. Like, I'm fortunate enough to be talking into a microphone about my thoughts and then distributing it to the masses. To whoever the hell wants to hear it. Everything's okay right now. And that gives me comfort. That gives me strength to keep going and working to achieve new things. If I just sat and worried about the what ifs and the I don't knows and what could happen, and then that's where all your energy is going. You're giving your energy away to this thing when you could spend your energy focusing on you, focusing on just being and appreciating all the beautiful things that there are to appreciate in this reality that we live in. So I think that's going to be all for now. Anybody that made it all the way through, thank you. I appreciate you. I feel very fortunate to be your soapbox hero, and this has been the first installment of the QC Quarantine Chronicles of the Soapbox Hero. I hope everybody's doing well. If there's anybody that needs anything, we have a little garden out here. We're going to be growing some veggies, a little bit of fruit, some melons. We got some watermelon, cantaloupe, stuff like that. And we got some chickens, so potentially might even be able to have some eggs to hook up anybody that doesn't have money, who doesn't have food, who's, getting close to panic. Reach out. I am at the Soapbox Hero on all of the formats, Instagram, Twitter. Please let me know if there's anything you need. I hope everybody's doing well, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.